Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Joe Zanca. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's the owner of OnDemand Storage, and he's also a podcast host. He hosts the Get It Done podcast, which is focused on growing businesses and his personal network. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Frank. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Serial entrepreneur. I guess let's talk about the different businesses you have, and then kind of roll into on-demand storage, if you would.
Sure. No, absolutely. So, I started my first business when I was in college, and it was actually a student storage business. So, me and my current partners today in on-demand storage, we were juniors in college. We were playing baseball and trying to do school. Didn't have much money. So we were looking around, came up with an idea to help students who are not from around the greater Boston area. We went to school at Babson College. So students who are traveling from all over the place to go to school in Boston, come up with a solution for them to store their items for the summer so they wouldn't have to carry everything home with them. So created a website, we put some flyers out there, put some stuff on social media, and sure enough, we got, a good chunk of people to trust us and sign up with us. And it was great. And so that was Simple Storage Inc. back then. And now we continue to do student storage at On-Demand Storage. So that was the first business I built. And then when I was 24 years old, after having a couple of jobs in the corporate world, decided to come back to the storage concept and create on-demand storage. And what on-demand storage does is we try to be the most convenient solution in the storage industry. So we provide pickup, storage, and delivery of items so that customers who use us, as opposed to using something like self-storage or pods, don't have to do any of the heavy lifting. They don't have to rent any trucks. They don't have to have, a giant metal box sit on their lawn and take up space or block the driveway or just not look great. They can just call us, sign up on our website, and we'll send a truck over. We'll pick up anything they want to put in storage, and we'll hold it for as long as they want. And then if they want anything delivered back or delivered somewhere else, we have the ability to deliver it back to them or ship it basically anywhere in the world. And so that's the concept behind the company. And we grew that company in Greater Boston for 4 years, still growing it today, but we've actually pivoted recently. And now what we're doing is, rather than just grow as a local provider of that service in the greater Boston area, we are taking our brand that has carved out a significant market share in greater Boston and advertising it, partnering up with moving companies, reputable moving companies across the country in cities that we think we can replicate what we've done in Boston. We're launching our brand, we're launching our concept, and we're using their assets in their storage space to provide the exact same service, just in different cities. And so there's a student storage element to it. There's residential, household goods. There's commercial opportunities. So anybody can really be our customer if, they find it more convenient than using a different service. But that's what we've been doing for the last 6 months. So we're in 9 cities right now. We're hoping to be in 15 by the beginning of May. And so that's kind of what on-demand storage is in a nutshell. And from there, like you mentioned, I do have a podcast that is kind of a separate business. I do a lot of, networking for on-demand storage through the podcast. It's called the Get It Done podcast on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. If you ever want to listen to it, Frank, you were a fantastic guest. And so, yeah, that's kind of the gist of what my businesses are. We've also actually recently created a marketing company that focuses specifically on SEO for moving companies. So we provide full service SEO services for movers specifically. The reason why we created that is because that's kind of what was the foundation of our business in Boston when we started growing fast. So we've gotten pretty good at it, and we're helping other moving companies who, maybe aren't ready to do the full-time partnership program, or maybe not interested for whatever reason. They want to, or they want to do both, help out with their SEO services. So that's it's called Moving Company Media. It's movingcompanymedia.com, and those are the businesses that I am involved in. But on-demand storage is kind of my, the base. That's where I always go back to. That's what I'm trying to grow and hopefully make my life's work.
I think, I definitely think there's a market there. As the father of college-age kids, my daughter went to college near where we live, close enough that it really wasn't a big deal. But it's one of these campuses where kids come from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And there were summers where I had stuff in my office, spare rooms in my office, from literally all over the world. And through COVID, I got stuck with a lot of stuff. I mean, it's slowly disappeared. Yeah.
So you were storing stuff for other friends and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I went to campus with the U-Haul to get my daughter's stuff, and she's like, "Hey, can you get Kelly's?" And Dee's going to Canada, so they're going to be on lockdown in Canada. It was just like, sure, put it all fit in the U-Haul. Well, I don't know whose is whose. You have to sort it out. But I just often wonder what kids do, because a lot of these kids fly in or drive cross country, and kids go to school with a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. When I went to college, it was a suitcase and maybe a duffel bag with gym stuff, but it's different nowadays. So
there's not a lot of great options. So we try to be one, because there's so much going on at that time of year too. They're trying to study for finals, and it's changing seasons typically. So a lot of the stuff they might have at school is still winter clothes. They don't need that for the summer. So where do they put all that stuff? How are they going to travel on a plane with everything they brought? That's where we recognize a need, and we still provide a solution to that across the country. We have some good partnerships at schools, and we do it independently as well. And so that part of our business has been great, because, people like parents like you, at the end of the day, if think about if you didn't live locally, it would be even more difficult to do that. You'd either be the friend asking to store at the local house, or you'd have to come up with a different solution. So
it's not easy. And the podcast, you talked about your podcast, and I think that's really creating some inroads for you, because you're able to talk to people that otherwise might not give you the time of day.
Exactly. I mean, that's how, you and I met. I reached out to you. So just like any company, we have some traditional sales methods of, email marketing, try to target people on social media. And, typically when we're doing that, there's some sort of component of just telling people about our business, saying, hey, Frank, do you have 10 minutes to learn how, we can make your life easier when it comes to storage in, 5 simple ways, or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, I mean, the email is revolving around on-demand storage, where you probably get 10, 15, 20 of those a day from all different companies that you've either signed up for, or they're just trying to solicit you for new business. So what I found was that, in order to just network with people, talk to people, meet new people, specifically business owners for my podcast, people who are maybe not even just business owners, but CEOs, presidents of companies, just invite them to have a conversation. And now more than ever, it's easier than it's ever been before, because of, this type of interaction right here, where we're on something like Zoom, and it doesn't require traveling. It doesn't require, because typically you're going to go meet someone for lunch. That's a 3-4 hour event. Me and you can have that same conversation we're going to have at lunch in 20 minutes over a Zoom call. So it's a lot of fun. And the podcast has been a fantastic way to network and to, like you said, meet new people, get them to commit to talking to you, even if there's no way of you guys even doing business together. The amount of things you can learn from other people, the amount of information you can gather from just having a conversation with someone who's experienced or doing something different than you are. I've found it invaluable, and I've only done the podcast for about 6 months now, but it's been just an amazing kind of way to do all sorts of different, promotion, but just networking with people and meeting new people is, I love everything about it.
Yeah, and before we turned on the mics and recorded, I was sharing with you, if you had just called me and said, "Hey, who do you know in the moving industry?" I would be like, "Click." I probably wouldn't have been that rude, but I'd be like, "I don't know you." But we probably spent 45 minutes on the phone before your podcast, talking on your podcast, and afterwards, and you kind of get a sense about somebody. And I think Zoom is really helpful. Not that it's a perfect way of reading. I have no idea how tall you are, but I can, I can, I can see the genuineness in your face,
Right. Yeah,
and you can kind of read people. And I'm like, all right, if that'll help you, sure. I know some people, and they can say no. There was no commitment or anything like that. And I just think it's kind of a different way of doing business.
it's a great way. You
Yeah,
create, well, what I've found is that, you create something together when you do a podcast. So it's like, we just created 30 minutes, 45 minutes of content
right.
that we can share as a whole. We can chop it up into different things. We can use it to promote our business. We can put it on our website. So we just created something together and met each other at the same time through a conversation, face to face. Like you said, it's not a perfect world, but it is face to face still. And the relationship that you build from just creating something together, it's like there was no exchange of money.
No.
There was no ties to it, but we did make something, and
Yeah.
that kind of like bonds us in a way already. So we've done that. This is our second time doing that. And then it's like, now it's like you said, if I had just called you and said, "Hey, how many people do you know in moving and storage? Can you introduce me to all of them?" You'd have been like, no. But
Yeah.
now that we've done something like that together, you've already generously taken the step to make some introductions for me, and I hope to give back and do the same to you. And this isn't the only relationship that I've made where that holds true.
Yeah.
In the podcast, I've done 90 episodes, and every one of them has led to, if anything, if nothing else, a brand new connection that I can follow on LinkedIn and get access to all their other connections. They can do the same to me. We have the piece of content that we made, but in other instances, direct business, all these different new relationships. So, it's amazing what it can produce. And it's so much different than anything else that's existed beforehand,
Yeah.
especially cold calling or cold emailing. It's
Yeah.
way more personal.
Yeah. And I think people have trouble getting their head around the concept because they want to go from point A to point B, right? I want the name. I want to prospect. I want to make the sale. And really what you're doing is you're going from point A to point B, but you're traveling through C, D, E, F, G, all the way on through the alphabet and then zipping back around and ultimately getting to B. And
Yeah.
people can't see that. But in the end, it becomes much more efficient. And with all of the things you've done, the story is not written yet because you have no idea, take me, for example. I might run into somebody who's in the moving business that I don't know at this point in time, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. And I'm like, "Hey, have you ever heard of on-demand storage?" No,
Yeah. Right.
I'm going to introduce you. So these things just kind of come out of the woodwork, and plus I've introduced you to some people to be on your podcast too. That's a huge help to them. I know I've helped you because I've given you some great people, but in a way it helps me because those people are like happy with me because thanks for introducing me to Joe. This is great because it's an opportunity to get their message out. It's very symbiotic. It's a neat thing. I'm glad you're doing it.
Appreciate that.
You went off to Babson to play baseball, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I got the
Collegiate
shirt on,
baseball
I
player.
think.
Oh, there you go. I went off to college to play football, so I get it. What'd you want to do? You didn't. I mean, Babson it's a great school, but they don't have a moving and storage degree, right? I mean, it's
No, they don't.
yeah,
But they're, I'll give Babson credit. They are entrepreneurial focused. I mean, it's actually ranked the best entrepreneur school in the world time after time in some
yeah,
publications. So it's known for entrepreneurship. When I went there, I was fortunate because I got to go there to play baseball. So fortunate for a couple of reasons. One, I got to play, college baseball, get that experience, make those friends who, two of the guys that my two partners in business are, my teammates. So I would have never met them, but no, I didn't go there with any aspirations of doing entrepreneurship, and especially moving in storage. That was never anything that I had ever been exposed to in my whole life. But what it did was it kind of gave me the courage and the confidence to believe in my own abilities and create something that um, other people would inherently want, a service that people needed and that they would exchange money for. And it
right,
showed me that I could do that, which is really cool. And so when I went to Babson, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I knew, I thought I was in the right place for a bunch of different reasons. And then I ended up studying real estate, and I actually had a career for 13 months before starting on-demand storage, doing real estate analytic work. But once I started that company for the first time at Babson, I got the entrepreneur bug. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I learned that I could do it. Like I said, we didn't become millionaires by any means. Still working towards that goal, but taught me that I could do it, and it taught me that I didn't need to go the traditional route. And so when I got into the traditional route, I always had that on my shoulder, just telling me hey, if this isn't something you want to do, if you can't see yourself, I couldn't get as passionate. I couldn't get as involved in being an employee after I started that. It was just it was always in the back of my head that I could go work, do something for myself. I just didn't know what yet. And so, it came with a good amount of research. It came with a good amount of planning as to dive into on-demand storage. But once we bought the domain name ondemandstorage.com, that kind of was the clicking point to, hey, I think this has some legs. We made a little bit of a business plan. It's definitely changed since we created it the first time. But that domain name gave us all the courage to quit our jobs and just dive right in.
right.
And learn as much as we can about moving and storage at the exact same time about doing it. So no, Babson did not teach me anything about moving and storage. It did teach me about entrepreneurship, and it taught me that I think half the battle with entrepreneurship is taking that leap and believing it, and having a little bit of a plan, enough that you can believe wholeheartedly that you can make it work, and then it just takes a lot of patience and persistence to get it to where you want it to go.
No, I'm a big proponent of entrepreneurship. I totally get it. If you're not trying, you don't have to convince me. People listening, how can they help you? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of me at LinkedIn, my Joe Zanca on LinkedIn. That's a good place to find me. My email address is joe@ondemandstorage.com. Ondemandstorage.com is our website. So we are in we're going to be in Cleveland, Ohio, starting in April. And we're hoping to be in the Columbus region soon thereafter, which will be cool. So if you need any moving and storage over the summer, take a look at that website. But yeah, joe@ondemandstorage.com is a perfect place to reach me. And I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody about, honestly, anything. The podcast has opened my eyes to, you and I mentioned before the show. Always take the conversation, because you really never know where it's going to go. Even if you think it might not go anywhere, I'd be happy to talk to anybody that wants to reach out.
Yeah, that is the lesson I continue to learn. Things that I think are going to be home runs. I guess this works well with you. Things I think are going to be home runs are, infield pop outs, and things that I think are, going to be just bunts, are in the park home runs. I just can't explain it. I can't explain it. It's just people, I think nothing will come from this, just totally amaze me. And people It's wild. So
it is wild. Every time I find myself getting like super excited about something, like you said, it often fades off into nothingness, and then out of nowhere something will just appear, and it will be like, oh wow, do you ever think that would be the opportunity it ended up being? I couldn't agree more. It's funny how it always happens, but the more conversations you have, the more exposure you have to any of those opportunities in general. Yeah, that's where I believe in it too, and I know that you're a huge believer in networking, and just definitely network in any way you can. Podcasting is a great way, and it's a lot easier than you think it is to start.
I agree. Well, I appreciate your time on the program today.
Thank you, Frank. This has been great.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.